And today it's cheese. Welcome to my kitchen. We're going to celebrate entertaining with cheese, from appetizers to dessert. Wonderful cheeses. Who invented cheese? At last I can say to you, it wasn't the Chinese. They've never done much with dairy products. It probably was not really invented at all, but actually given us by God. The old story goes that in the old days, we're talking about 6,000 years ago, a fellow would store milk in a goat skin, a stomach, you see, in the stomach of the goat, because it's kind of a bottle affair. And there's a natural rennet in the stomach, and it caused the milk to turn to curd, to whey. It curds and whey, you see. Oh, incidentally, Miss Muffet, you'll learn more about her today, too. The curds and whey become a cheese, and that's probably how cheese came about. But remember, that means that cheese has got to be one of the oldest food products we know. It predates wine, because they had to stand around and grow grapes. It goes back to the time when everyone was a nomad, and we wandered about following the herds. We learned to make butter, and we learned to make cheese from the milk of the herds. Even before agriculture came about, we were making cheese. The process is simple. You add a curd or a rennet, something will cause the milk to curdle, to the milk, and then you drain the whey off of the milk, and then you press it or age it. That's all there is to it, and that's the way they've always done it. A contemporary cheese factory does did a little bit more involved way, because they have gorgeous equipment and incredible volume. But this is how it starts. This is the factory, from the grass to the cow. Isn't she gorgeous? To the Lena Cheese Factory in Lena, Illinois. Mr. Dimitri, excuse me, his name is Demeter. Mr. Demeter, the dear fellow I'm wandering around with, is an old Greek. And Greeks were probably some of the first people to ever make cheese. This is a cheddar that they're cutting up the curd now after it's been allowed to drain, and they chop it up, and then they'll form it into a big press. It's interesting to taste the cheese when it's raw. That is to say, it's been pasteurized and cooked already, but it hasn't been pressed and aged, and that's what they mean by raw curd. It's kind of rubbery and squeaky, but it has a nice flavor. These guys eat it like candy. When you begin the process then, you add rennet to the milk, it curdles, and it makes a curd, you see. It looks like cottage cheese, and then the curd sets up, and it begins to form almost something like a jello, and then it has to be cut up. And these are the knives they use to cut the curd. He's making feta, which is one of our oldest cheeses. You then put the curd into a mold or a form so it can drain. In this case, they were simply using buckets with holes in them. Now he's making brie, and I think this is his finest cheese. You can see that the milk has reached the point of almost a gelatin-like consistency, so now he has to cut the curd, and then the next step, you see, is to pour the curd into molds so that the whey can drain out. Miss Muffet was eating both curds and whey, but we don't want the whey now. We want to drain the whey so we can get cheese, and away we go, pouring the cheese curds down into molds. These are small little brie molds, you see. It tastes like cottage cheese at this point, because it hasn't been aged, and the right bacillus hasn't been added yet. Funny, even in all this technological creativity, it's the old man, bless his heart. He goes around and he almost pats every cheese. He just kind of blesses everything. Then it's back to technology again, but he watches everything closely. Here they're pressing the cheeses, these beautiful little brie. I have one here, I'll show you. And the machine will press out some of the moisture, let it drain for a bit, and then it will go into aging. But first you've got to drain the whey. This is a fascinating machine. They used to do this by hand, but now they can drain 500 cheeses at once before they put them in the curing room. And we're now in the curing room, and you'll see the cheese change from yellow to a beautiful white, and the final product, and this is one that we saw made from beginning to end, has that wonderful odor. Oh, this is a camembert. He also has the brie. It's simply wonderful. He's just great. I'm very impressed with the man. Mr. Demeter at Lena. He gives all kinds of cheeses. He makes a Swiss cheese. You saw those first ones. Look at these. Look at all the bubbles. And that, again, is a different bug, so to speak. And he makes a beautiful Havarti. And the Havarti is a much milder cheese. You see, it doesn't get quite as big and puffy. And here's his brie. Oh, this stuff's heaven. Well, anyhow, today we're going to celebrate cheese. Now, for the first course, you'd want to have an appetizer, right? I would suggest a great goat cheese. This is a Sèvres, and it's made from, literally from goat's milk. He puts a little bit of cow's milk in it. It's very, very rich, and this is honest-to-God yuppie food. It's very in at the moment. You'll even see chèvre or goat cheese, French goat cheese fritters in restaurants. Very delicious. Then I would go on to, another appetizer for you perhaps, would be a deep-fried cheese. Have you tried that? It's very simple. Let me see if the fat's hot enough yet. We're just about there. Let me show you how the process goes. We're going to want to prepare some, I'm using cheddar cheese. Remember that big vat? Wonderful stuff. And it takes a while to age this, but I'm going to dip the cheddar cheese cubes, they're not very large, into a bit of white flour and cornmeal. Isn't that what I have in here? Cornmeal? No. What do I have in here? That's it. Cornmeal. That's going to have to be it. No. Try breadcrumbs or cornmeal. It'll work. I like the breadcrumbs really well. This is what we've got in here. I couldn't remember. Oh, too many things going on this morning. I tell you that all the time, don't I? I had too much going on in my kitchen, but that's why it's fun. I think that's enough. How's the fat doing? Perfect. We want the fat at about 380 degrees. And now we'll simply slip these in. Let me wash my hands off first. It's a mess. We'll slip them, the little sticks into the hot fat, 380 degrees. And of course, I'm using peanut oil. You don't see me deep fry much, do you? I want to avoid that much fat in your diet. And here I'm doing nothing but cheese. Yes, this is a little heavy today, but I want you to understand that for entertaining, you can do much more with cheese than you've tried in the past. All right, that's fine. We're right on the button. And in we go. All right. And we'll deep fry these for just a moment. Just take a second. Well, not a second. I'm talking a couple of minutes here. All right. And in the meantime, I want to get another burner going here for us. And we're going to prepare a second course, which of course is a soup. Have you ever had cheese soup? I made a beer and cheese soup for you once, but today I want to use Mr. Demeter's beautiful brie for a cream of brie soup. Yes, this is classy. This is elegant stuff. And the brie is not cheap. Brie is not cheap. Incidentally, Mr. Demeter manufactures, I have the statistics here for you. While I'm waiting on the cheese, I'll give it to you. Mr. Demeter uses 180,000 pounds of milk per day in his factory, right in the middle of the cornfields of Illinois. That works out to, you ready? I had to calculate all this for you because I don't know what 180,000 pounds of milk looks like. It is 21,176.5 gallons. And out of that, you lose 90% of the weight. So you use 180,000 pounds of milk. 180,000 pounds equals 18,000 pounds of cheese. And the rest is whey. And you know what they do with it? He puts it in big vats and it's made into cattle food. Nothing is wasted. Talk about frugal. I'm impressed. That's the way it should be. Now we'll get our cheese out of the, come on, soup. There we go. Get our cheese out of the deep fat. You see? You didn't think this was going to work, did you? It works very well. I'm going to put it on a bit of a paper towel so that we can arrange them on a platter. I have a couple more here that I've prepared before your arrival. Ouch, they're a little hot, obviously. But the cheese is very soft inside. It hasn't melted because, or it hasn't come apart. It's melted a bit, but it hasn't become gooey and run all over because the little casing of flour and breadcrumbs, dip it in egg, then in flour and breadcrumbs, have held it together. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I enjoy it. All right, second thing we're going to do, put this out for you. Needs a Parkley sprig, doesn't it? There we go. This is a good one. Cheese for the meal. We're on the second one now. We can use plain cheese as an appetizer, cheese sticks, and how about a cheese soup? If you prepare a brie soup, start first of all with 2 cups of broth. I'm using chicken broth. And to our 2 cups of chicken broth, we're going to add some sauteed vegetables. I have sauteed, in a tiny bit of butter, I've sauteed, about a half cup of onion and about a half cup of celery. There. And saute them just until they're tender and soft, not until they're discolored. You see? We don't want that. Okay, now we're going to add, as soon as we get that to a simmer, we're going to add some cheese. So I'll prepare that now, and I'm going to use his gorgeous brie. Does this sound too expensive to you? Well, pretty flamboyant soup, but after all, you and I can afford to be pretty flamboyant people if we live right. Look at how lovely and ripe this is. You see, it should be soft, right in the center. And yes, please use the crust. You're to eat that. You don't. I'm going to try one now. You don't just eat the outside, the soft inside. I've seen people stand around and peel brie. Terrible thing to do. Okay, I'm going to chop up half a wheel. If you're sitting at home going, "Oh my Lord, now my kid is going to see him eating with his mouth full," I do that all the time. Not eating, talking. My mouth is always full. into the pan of broth now, which is 2 cups of chicken broth, some sauteed yellow onions and celery, and we're going to stir in the brie. It'll not take long to cook. I've got to get another paddle here. We'll melt this down a bit, you see? There. Oh, we'll need just a tiny bit of salt. There we go. Not much. You don't need a lot of salt in your food, remember? And this is going to be very, very rich. We're going to put this in a food processor and grind it all up. So it's a nice puree. And you're saying, where is the cream? Well, I'll add that later. You add 2 cups of milk. No, I'm not trying to make it a low calorie. It's too late. When you consider this piece of cheese was 10 times its size in terms of milk volume when it started. It takes 10 quarts of milk to make 1 quart of cheese. That's a lot of loss. So it's too late to cut down on the butterfat because all the butterfat's concentrated in this. But you can either add a cup of milk and a cup of cream, or you can add 2 cups of milk. There, that's ready. Let's put it in the food processor. We'll grind this up now and have a wonderful second course for our entertaining with cheese. All right, in we go. This makes that wonderful noise, you know. Here we go. Just takes a second here. All right, 2 seconds. We're going to grind it up a bit. There we are. I think that's set. Yep. Now we would return it to the pan, and very gently. Don't boil this. You see how fine and nice it is now? Everything's chopped up, including that. Whoops. There's the paddle too. We don't need that. Including the rind of the cheese, which is really the flavoring item in the cheese. It's a bacillus. It's something they have to inject into the cheese, and it's wonderful. Now we'll add a bit of cream or milk. I'm using milk, 2 cups. And there. The soup is done. Uh-oh. The oven. I've got a surprise for you. I think. Let me look. Do I have a surprise for you? Yes, I'm worried about things not working on my kitchen, just like yours. Let me stop the bell, and I'll take it out in just a minute. But first, I want to get the beautiful brie soup on the counter here so we can enjoy it. Breadcrumbs in my bowl. Cream of brie. Can you believe it? This will knock them dead at your next dinner party. I don't expect you to serve nothing but cheese for dinner. That's not the point of our discussion today. The point of our discussion centers around the fact that you can do much more with cheese than you've done in the past. How about some chives for a topper, huh?